Hi, I'm Bob Galen, and welcome to Zenergy, our Zenergy booth here at the Agile Development Conference in Las Vegas in 2017.
And I'm Shaun Bradshaw, and Bob, you've been here a couple of days. What are people talking about? What do we need to share with our audience out here?
I think they're talking about Agile, Shaun. I'm just kidding. It's Agile, DevOps, automation is interesting, leadership, teamwork. Everyone is still struggling, as you know, with Agile still. I mean, people come here to learn and to share their challenges. So one of them, I think we were talking about, is Scrummerfall.
Oh yeah, Scrummerfall.
Have you seen? Can you define that for folks?
So actually, I was just working with a client a few days ago, and they're in the midst of transitioning from Waterfall to Agile. And I warned them as part of the training not to fall into the rut of Scrummerfall, and I defined it for them as, doing a 2-week sprint where they do requirements, and 2 weeks for design, 2 weeks for dev, 2 weeks for test. They got it. All right. So we're on the board. We're doing some sprint planning, and I asked them to start putting their tasks together. You have this nice grid with the calendar that you've put together for teams that are starting sprint planning, and sure enough, they start laying out their tasks. And you've got requirements tasks, and then design tasks, and then code tasks, and test tasks.
Exactly.
And I said, okay, guys. So I defined Scrummerfall for you one time. Let me show you. This is Scrummerfall within a sprint.
Yep.
And that's actually something that, and they're a new team. They had been warned about it, so they took that advice. But even teams that have been working for a while still have a tendency not to break down their work enough to push some of those later tasks in Waterfall earlier in the sprint.
I think there's a natural, though. There is a natural Scrummerfall that happens. Like testing doesn't happen on the first day of the sprint before you've written any code. So I think there's little mini waterfalls that are natural in Agile.
Exactly.
The problem is not letting them fill the sprint.
That's
so that
right.
You're deferring testing to like the last 2 days of the sprint. Why don't we talk about some ways to combat it? So I'll tee up one way is WIP limits. If you limit your work in progress in a sprint, so only a few stories are in play, it forces the team to get those done before you work on other things. And done would be testing as well.
That's right.
Well, then you stage the work, so you would have Scrummerfall iterations, if you will, or little mini waterfalls. But in the first 3 days, you're delivering. In the second 3 days, you're delivering. In the third 3 days. So at least that's a technique for smoothing things out. You have any others?
Well, the technique that we were actually using as part of your sprint planning, one of the things you can do is lay out a 2-week sprint, and then start putting tasks up, and then step back, take a look, where are the tasks falling, and it becomes very clear whether you intended to or not, whether or not you're putting more of your testing type tasks towards the end, or they earlier based more on a horizontal or a particular backlog item or a user story. I think it's a great visualization to make clear that even without thinking, sometimes you're doing it.
So visualizing the planning.
That's exactly. So I think the WIP limits.
Visualize planning.
Yep.
The other thing I would add is maybe courage to have testers. So knowing that it's a whole team view. And so if you see it laid out like that, very often the testers will see it laid out like that, but they don't want to interrupt. The developers are happy about the plan, and the testers are like, we're going to get sort of skewed at the end again, and no one wants to really say something. So I would add in, if you visualize it, or even with WIP limits, you have to have the courage to say, time out. This is really the wrong plan, and we have to sort of smooth things from a QA perspective.
And I'll finish with one other thing. So in a team that's been operating, I think you're exactly right. I think in teams that are making that transition, it's the awareness, because that's what they're used to. A tester would never think there was anything wrong with that. They're used to that. So again, that visualization and having a good coach there or someone there to point it out to them and call it out, I think is a huge benefit, and the next time they'll be better and better and better.
One final point is you need to remember that Scrummerfall is risky for the entire team. It's an incredibly risky way to set up the sprint. So you're all going to fail. It's not a testers are complaining about it view. It's if we set up Scrummerfall, it's setting the sprint for the team up to fail, and no one wants to do that. Yeah. So don't let Scrummerfall sort of creep into your planning, testers. Real key, and there's a lot of it.
Well, so many of us grew up in Waterfall. We can't help it.
It's a common pattern.
It's part of our experience, and so we have that tendency to fall back towards it. You have to be vigilant.
Absolutely.